Namaste. My name is Amog and welcome to my podcast. Today, I welcome back to the show Advocate Prashant. You might have heard him for the first time on my podcast a few episodes back when we discussed the case of Arnab Goswami. Today, I've called him to discuss some of the issues and questions that I have and some other people may have on the farm acts that were passed in India in this year. There are three acts, but the act that has caused by far the most uproar is the one that was passed recently. It is called the Farmers Empowerment and Protection Agreement on Price Assurance and Farm Services Bill of 2020. Now it's an act. The other two we will keep referring to. One of them is the Farmers Produce, Trade and Commerce Promotion and Facilitation Bill, again an act now. And the third is the Essential Commodities Amendment Act. Now, Prashant, I'd like to go over the first act, chapter by chapter. I hope that's okay with you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's just get into it.
First of all, thank you for inviting me again. It was a very good experience. First time when we interacted about Mr. Arnab Goswami's case, and now we have another big issue that is currently a national concern right now.
Yeah.
See, I have read this, all the three acts.
Yeah.
I have tried to be very critical about it. I will even go ahead and say that I tried to think like a normal layman to be able to grasp how they are taking this law. See, I will come out clear and say that my parents are farmers, actually, both of them.
Wow, I didn't know that.
And ancestrally, from both the sides, my grandparents, they were farmers. So I come from a family of farmers. Traditionally, we are landowners in Uttar Pradesh, and we are farmers. So it's not just about a legal issue; it is also personal to us.
Okay.
Now let's start by discussing what is the current prevalent system.
Okay.
Some states have mandis.
Yeah.
They refer to different names: mandis, APMCs, bazaars, whatever.
Yeah.
So the gist is same. The basic concept is same. So now what farmer has to do? He grows the crop which is listed in the MSP scheme, and he claims the MSP price from the state government, and the state government procures it.
Okay.
Now if we talk about rice or paddy, it is procured by FCI. Now some of the farmers from central India are facing a huge issue that FCI is not buying rice. Now, why will FCI buy rice when if it already has a stock?
Yeah.
So if there is a huge surplus of a perishable good, then how to go about it? How should the state or the people in general go about it? Now let us not look at the whole scheme as a farmer's point of view, that they are growing as per their whims or fancies, or as per the direction of the state, but how the demand and supply chain goes.
Okay.
Now, see, for example, if you have a piece of land and you want to grow something, so you will try to assess what kind of goods are needed and what kind of crop your soil can produce in the best possible way, without much labor or without giving too much investment. So India is a huge nation, and different parts are known for different kind of produce. So the local farmers are very much aware about it. So we are not just producing for the local market. We should look at this as India as a whole, and in some regards as a supplier for the whole world, because we do not only feed ourselves. In some aspect, we also feed other nations too by exporting them. So we are trying to see farmers not just as an individual, but also as a part of a very huge system. when if a particular kind of produce is made in excess and it is perishable and there is no already established system to take it and supply or manage it or make it or in any way make it usable or increase revenue, then it is bound that its price will fall. How many times we see that the onions and tomatoes are thrown on road in Maharashtra, in Nasik? That kind of news is like it's an annual thing, and farmer suicide is also unfortunate and extremely saddening, and yet highly recurring
phenomenon.
thing.
It's a phenomenon now, by now.
Yeah, it's happening every year.
Yeah.
So now we should look at this protest that whatever I have tried to argue with people, not just argue. I try to step into their shoes. I try to understand what issues they have. So the thing they are pointing out are the flaws of the already existing system.
Yeah, and blaming it on the act.
Exactly. I do not know how to go about it when someone is blaming the already prevailing system to attack the new law. That makes no sense at all.
Yeah, I mean, that's the default state of a lot of people. That, I mean, they're kind of frustrated with the system as it is, and whenever something new happens, they just start attacking that new thing. It's just common. I don't know.
Yeah.
You were saying something. I'm sorry.
So yeah, no, it's okay. So we have to look at it as a huge market first of all, because it has to become a huge market for farmers to become self-sufficient and as a useful asset for the nation. Farmers should not be competing with each other, rather than they should be working in conformity with each other. If for example, if we cannot feed ourselves solely with the rice and pulses. There are so many things we need, and each one of them is very important for nutrition. And everything, if produced in a good quality and in a sufficient amount, will not just be good for the consumers. It will also bring profit to the farmers. Now, people may say that what you are saying is just a utopia, and what you are saying is extremely obvious. Yes, it is obvious, and nobody is talking about obvious things. That is why I'm stating this.
Yeah.
Now, I think I have reasons to believe that these laws, except the third one, the Essential Commodities Amendment Act, the first two laws have been designed to take a step towards commercialization of farming sector. Now, people are complaining that why are you commercializing farming sectors?
Yeah.
My question to them is why not?
Yeah. I mean, they somehow see this commercialization as something evil. I'll tell you this.
Yes.
I came across an article published in none other than the Indian Express and written by none other than Salman Khurshid, along with one more person. And the article basically identified 6 problems with the new Farm Act. And it turns out one of the points that they raised, both of the authors raised, was that corporatization of farms all over the world, wherever it has happened, they raised this, that wherever it has happened, it has led to a problem for the farmers. So they say that the corporates benefit. They did quote an instance, but I don't know if that's valid. If I want, I can just leave a link to that in the description here, and maybe people can go through it. But the issue is that the thing that they argue is, if you corporatize this sector, then the corporates take undue advantage of the farmers, because farmers don't have any bargaining power there. And I mean, there's a lot of issues, as I'm sure we'll discuss as we discuss the act further, that there are certain things because of which the farmer is at a disadvantage, and the corporates take all the benefits away and the farmer still stays in penury. That's what they argue. Now, I want you to, since you raised this point of commercialization, I want you to just explain a bit why this perspective is wrong in the first place. I am of a clear opinion that commercialization, wherever it has happened, commercialization, wherever it has happened, it has led to an increase in efficiency, it has led to an increase in quality, and it has led to a severe, it has led to a great increase in the sheer, prosperity of the people who are in that field. So I don't know why people oppose it. Maybe you have some insight into why people think that.
I can try to explain this kind of phenomenon or the collective sheep mentality.
Hmm.
First of all, let's bust this misconception that commercialization brings penury or disaster for the farmers.
Hmm.
We know we have been reading about prairies. If we are to compare India,
Hmm.
India, which is a huge nation, we should compare it with another huge nation and not with a small nations like European countries. We should compare it with big nations like USA,
Okay,
Canada,
makes sense. Yeah.
Australia.
Hmm.
So and China also.
Ah.
If we compare if we look at the lifestyle of farmers of a USA, of a particular farmer of USA,
Hmm.
they are pretty much rich. Their per capita income is significant. It's handsome,
Yeah.
and you can see that if you can even simply Google prairies, and you can see huge farmlands and how efficiently and in an industrialized way they are producing so much uh, whatever they are producing,
Hmm.
and there is already a system in place to take it from their farm and without compromising its quality, and
Hmm.
immediately rush it to the place where it can be processed if needed,
Hmm.
or packaged if needed, or directly sold
Yeah.
to the next
Hmm.
stage in the supply chain.
Yeah.
So now I think I have not. I'm pretty much sure that this whole farmers protest is not a farmers protest, but a middleman's protest, the
Yeah.
large protest. I'll
Yeah.
say. I may sound extremely biased against the protesters,
Hmm.
and people may call us Modi bhakts. Okay, but whoever thinks that we are Modi bhakts or completely pro-state, completely pro-state, they should counter us with logic.
Yeah.
If you present before, I think we have decided about having a podcast last week. Yet, yet both of us at our own level were
Hmm.
looking for a very good counter,
Yeah.
so that we can present a counter view also, a
Correct.
sound counter view, so
Hmm.
that we can even question the state. But there is none. There is actually no counter to these laws, which aren't based on hypothetical premises.
Hmm.
So
Or sometimes
a law
outright
cannot be
falsehoods as well. I mean, there are
exactly
some things that people
concoction.
say that don't even feature in the law.
Yes.
Sorry. Yeah.
Basically, don't apologize. So basically,
Yeah.
people are becoming victim of rumor mongering,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
A lot.
it, and the opposition is playing with people, and some vested interests are hijacking it
Hmm.
very efficiently. And
Yeah.
Indian farmers aren't evil. They're innocent people. They are very good.
Hmm.
They're good natured. If they are saying that people are saying that state is going to ruin them,
Hmm.
or the state is going to take them away their right, it is natural that they will panic, because a huge crowd is saying that there has to be some substance, and
Yeah.
there is no one. And I'll highly criticize the central government for not taking efficient and quick action to
Hmm.
curb this kind of menace of rumors and false propaganda against the law.
True. Yeah.
Now, uh, furthermore, if anyone is going to challenge these laws,
Hmm.
the proper forum is
Court.
constitutionally established courts. Yeah, they can
Exactly. Hmm.
directly go and challenge that it is not suitable. It hasn't no due deliberation or discussion has been made. If Let us assume that no discussion was made, which is outright false.
Hmm.
For the argument's sake, if let's say if no discussion or procedure has been observed before passing these laws, this alone is a very good argument. They can challenge it. They
Correct.
can bring a stay on the operation.
Hmm.
They can. It's possible. Parliament is not for single parties. Parliament is not an instrument for one particular party to do whatever they want.
Yeah.
An opposition, even a single opposition is there, his opinion has to be heard. And in
Correct.
fact, MPs from the same party, from the ruling party, can question it. They have a right, and they should,
Yeah.
because they are not there to uh, propagate or perpetuate the uh, whatever their government is saying, but to safeguard the interest of their people. So this
Yeah.
is how things are meant to be, and how things are actually going are completely different. The
Yeah.
government is indeed at fault. Government is compromising at so many levels.
Yeah.
and not taking care of people. Government is letting people get victimized by these kind of rumors,
Yeah.
and this is a huge setback. This,
Yeah.
even though they have 303 seats, what more power do you need? What do you want? I do not understand. I do not understand what do they want.
Yeah. I mean, there's a thing that this just, I don't know what it confuses me a lot, man. That's why I can't even think about it. How is this happening? These people, the current ruling party BJP, used to be so good at communication. What happened to that? I mean, they are not even able to clarify. We saw the same thing when this CAA riots happened.
Yeah.
There were hundreds of reasons that people
CA was
could
CA
challenge.
complete. Yeah.
Yeah, I was saying that there were multitudes of reasons that people could challenge it on the basis of some facts or something. But the problem is, these people didn't read the bill. I don't entirely blame them, because not all of those people understand that kind of language or whatever. So it was the responsibility of the government to come out with clarifications, to come out with Q&As and answer everything that was being discussed. Same thing we are seeing here. The government it has spectacularly failed in clarifying what exactly is happening. And now
It
we
almost looks
see,
deliberate now.
yeah, it might even be, man. I don't know. And just yesterday or day before yesterday, I saw this tweet by ANI, in fact. So they said that the BJP is organizing press conferences at everywhere in the country, wherever their presence is, and they're clarifying. But this is happening at the party level. What happened to the government? The BJP
It
is
is
doing as a
government's duty,
party.
not party.
Yeah, it's
It
not the
is not
party's duty.
BJP's duty, it is government's duty.
Yeah, I mean, okay, if they want to spend their funds that way, no one else would have a problem. But the thing is, it's the job of the government. I'll tell you why this matters to me. Because, like you just said, people are spreading rumors among each other. Some people are doing it deliberately, but some people genuinely don't know. And one of the rumors is, which is very dangerous, and I'd like you to clarify this. People are saying that APMCs are outrightly being abolished.
No, not true.
Yeah. So can you please just explain that?
APMCs are there is no such section in any of these laws which states that APMCs will become operational. So I do not have anything to say. There is no section. It is completely whimsical to say that APMCs will be abolished.
Yeah. So
what should I say? I have only one answer, that there is no such provision.
Yeah. I mean, it might probably be coming out of this chapter 2, which is the farming agreement. It has to do with the farming agreement.
First chapter, you mean?
No, first chapter is definitions and everything. So that's why chapter 2.
No. We decided that.
First act. Yeah, first act. Correct. First act, chapter 2. Yeah.
Chapter 2. Yes.
Yeah.
Chapter 2 in section.
The entire chapter. It has to do with farming agreement, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
okay. I will. Let's
just go through that.
Yeah. So first of all, APMC is defined in this particular act. What APMC is, Mandi or whatever. With the let's look at section 2, subsection A. APMC yard means the physical premises covering agricultural produce, market committee yard, by whatever name called, established for regulating markets and trade in farming produce under any state act. So first of all, APMC are established under state act. State APMCs are subject matter of state list.
Okay.
Central government cannot abolish APMCs.
So it's not their jurisdiction to do that.
It is not their jurisdiction to abolish. And this act is not even attempting to abolish or do away with APMCs. What it is saying is giving farmers a liberty. If I'm a farmer, I have 12 acres of land. I can grow the crop which the state wants me to grow, for which they have prescribed minimum support price. And I'll go and sell it in the mandi, and I may use remaining 4 acres of land for a particular purpose by contracting with with any businessman who needs a particular kind of maybe cotton or whatever. He needs cotton yarn or anything. He can just contract with me. I can use that and sell directly to him. I'll sell it to him. I do not need to
consult the state, basically.
Consult the state, any middleman, anyone. Even farmers face so much difficulty. For example, in remote areas, they may not always get transport vehicles to get their produce packed and transferred to the desired location. They have to wait for days, and sometimes qualities of the crops are compromised.
Correct. Those are perishable products, basically.
Now look at from the angle of the corporations. If I'm Ambani, Adani, or any local businessman, if I am going to register myself for these kind of transactions, these kind of business, I will communicate with the farmers. We will draw a particular agreement, and it will. I know, because it's not farmers' work to have transport vehicles and everything. So everything will be decided firsthand. We will have a contingent date by which the crops will be ready for cultivation. We cannot calculate exactly, but we can have a rough idea. We can always have a rough idea. So I, being a businessman, a corporate, I will have dealings with the transportation workers also. I will be in touch with them. It will be upon me to have a good contact or a pre-designed agreement with them, that they shall make vehicles available to me at the desired location for packing and moving. So the middleman is ruled out. The seller of the crop and the buyer will meet directly without farmers having to go through much hassle. It will save farmers time. They will not have to wait for money, because it is contract based. The corporations will have to pay money immediately, otherwise because they have to get registered. And if they are going to retain money, and on the basis of complaints by the farmers, they may get blacklisted. And there is also a mechanism, well designed mechanism within this particular act for redressal of grievances. If the act itself, farmers are not going to design the act. They do not the act, the agreement. The farmers are not going to design the agreement, but they are going to be a party to it. Now, if I'm trying to play a farmer for a fool, if I'm trying to take him for a ride, and I'm making such kind of clauses which are going beyond the scope of this particular act, the whole agreement will be illegal. It will be quashed, and the farmer will get the money out of this agreement without having to perform his reciprocal promise as per the void agreement. There is a provision. I will read it out to you. Furthermore, it also gives protection to the farmers against act of God.
That was one of the questions, that what happens if there's like drought or excessive rain or some other problems.
The act itself gives protection against such kind of mishappenings. So if I try to not mention this particular clause in the agreement, try to fool a farmer, and I say that vis major, the clause of vis major, that is act of God, is not applicable, or I just do not mention it, then it will be read into the agreement, because the act says so. So the agreement cannot override the act.
I understand.
Let us discuss.
I just had a question before we do that. This particular thing. You mentioned that because of this act, what can happen is farmers and, in the words of the act, a sponsor, and it's also possible that a third party may come in, but a farmer and a sponsor can directly have an agreement between themselves, and the farmer can just sell to the sponsor. That is something that was that I could understand from the act. Anyone, if they have access to the act, they can read it and they can understand it. So you mentioned that there will be there's no necessity of middlemen, right? So I want to ask, what role did middlemen play prior to this act? What role did they play and now they cannot? Because this is also one more thing that we have heard from the people who are opposing the protest. They're saying that all of these are the middlemen who are out of jobs. What exactly did middlemen used to do? That's my question.
See, the farmer toils on the field throughout the year. He has to take care of his crops every day. So you cannot expect him that after the cultivation he will carry it to the he will arrange a vehicle for transport, carry it to properly package it, and deliver it to the APMC. Stand in the queue and then start bidding. The APMC is for bidding, and the minimum support price is the basic value from which the bidding starts.
Okay.
And I'm talking about the crops which are not purchased by the state directly. I'm not talking
Okay.
about such crops.
Okay.
The
Okay.
crops which are sold to people, sold to the businessman. Because I know somebody who's in this business. He's filthy rich just by purchasing vegetables from the APMCs, and he has a control of. He is in connection with the local vegetable vendors. So in a very huge area, he's in contact with local vegetable vendors in a huge area. He has some men who are bidders who sell the vegetables and other farm produce in the APMCs, mandis. So the rate at which a farmer transfers his produce to the middleman who arranges everything and sells it in the mandis, and price at which the crops are actually the vegetables are actually sold in the market is huge.
Okay. Okay.
So now compare that. Compared, I should have prepared a data on this. I didn't get time. I'm sorry. I could, because I could have. My father is pretty much equipped with these kind of trivia. The amount in which, for example, if we talk about tomatoes, potatoes, or vegetables which we consume throughout the year, or the social media's favorite cauliflower. If we talk about these kind of vegetables, the price, the farmer never sells it based on one unit. The farmer sells it based on the area.
Okay.
For example, it depends per acre, the produce per acre.
Okay.
It can be huge, it can be less, but generally, if the farmer is a hardworking farmer, then the produce is always rich and good. So he's not earning on per unit, but he's earning on per unit of area
basis.
of
Okay.
land. Yes, acre or gatta or whatever. They have a different bigha. So these are all different kinds of measurements depending on the local.
Yeah. So basically, depending on the land area and not the unit.
Yeah. Yes. So that's the general practice.
Okay.
And when the middleman sells it and in the APMCs and mandis, he earns by the weight of the produce.
Okay.
And his earning is several magnitudes higher than what farmer is earning, just because he has arranged the transport and he is taking it to the mandis. Interesting trivia in Punjab. In Punjab, big farmers are pretty much able to control this.
Yeah,
big
because
farmers,
they don't need to depend on these kind of middlemen to get their produce out, right? I mean, they can just do it.
So let us say that you and I are both big farmers. You and I are both are farmers in Punjab. I am a rich farmer, and you are a smaller farmer, average or smaller farmer who is working just in my village. I'm an influential person, and what I'll do, I'll just say that, "Hey, mera to hai. I'm taking my goods to the market. I'll take yours too."
Oh, okay.
So the powerful farmer has control on the lower landowners or farmers on their area. So the big farmers are not just farmers; they are also middlemen for the others.
Okay.
Because they have control on the mandis, they have political controls on the mandis and the areas. So I'm trying to convey that the whole protest is not at all a farmer's protest, but a middleman's protest.
Okay, yeah, a little detour here. I mean, it's probably not related to the acts or anything. I'm just asking it for my own clarification's sake. Why is it that farmers, decide their, or sell based on their land area, and the middlemen sell based on the units, or decide the price based on units? Why is that distinction there? I mean, is it like a mandated distinction, or just people do that by themselves?
This has become a system, One will, because the property which doesn't exist. If I am right now having a vacant land and you are a businessman, you are approaching me, you are you are trying to buy something which does not exist on that date. So that's why there cannot be
Okay.
any sale on the basis of weight or piece of
Okay.
produce, but only at the output capacity of the land.
Okay. Okay.
What we are saying is that I'm not talking about the MSPs here.
Oh,
MSPs
yeah,
are
yeah,
not
that's
applicable
different.
on these things. MSPs are not applicable on these things. For example, if I'm growing papaya, government, I don't think any state government pays MSPs on papayas. Papayas are highly lucrative, 4 lakhs per acre.
Wow.
Cap. If the produce is good.
Of
See,
course, yeah.
I have seen that the North Indian farmers are extremely hardworking. They are extremely brilliant at their work. They can grow anything anywhere. I'll say that they are magicians. They can do anything. They are very highly talented and extremely brilliant in their work. So, and all I'm saying is that if there is a corporate investment in their work, the quality will go up. Quality will definitely go up. Now, let us come back to the act. I'll try to explain one thing which I don't think anyone has ever mentioned this in any social media or news website. Let us say that this law is not passed, or let us say that this law is repealed or called back, or maybe it
Just go
never
back
came into
5 months and
existence.
let's see
Yeah,
that
yeah.
time.
Let's say I'm a farmer. I do not want to sell it to the. I'm a rebel.
APMC.
I'm a rebel farmer. I do not want to sell through the medium of a middleman. And I have a friend who is a businessman, he's a big corporate man, and he is willing to purchase my produce. So what we do, we make an agreement. We make a contract. We make a very good contract, and as per the contract, I worked completely. I fulfilled my side of the reciprocal promise. I delivered the goods to him. Now he is using some kind of technicalities or other reasons to deny me my fair payment.
Okay.
What remedy do I have? Tell me.
Well, you entered a contract, right? So you can just
Yes.
get get courts to enforce that contract.
Exactly. How? I will have to approach a
The
civil
courts.
court.
Yeah.
Yes. Now, for example, now if let's say I'm approaching civil court and the value of produce which I had is 50 lakhs. 50 lakhs. The value of the market value of produce which I had is 50 lakhs.
Okay.
So I'll have to pay court fees proportionate to 50 lakh rupees, which is a very big amount. It can go up to 3.5 to 4 lakh, the court fees. And civil cases for specific performance or money recovery are not a small thing. They are prolonged. This has been an issue in India. Everybody knows that the courts are slow, and securing justice is a time-taking process. There are so many technicalities which lawyers like me use in court to delay if our client is wrong and it needs time. Even though ultimately justice gets served in civil matters,
Of course.
but it takes a lot of time and patience for everyone, for the parties. The farmer will not just have to take care of his field and for the next year, farming season. He'll also have to worry about the court cases also.
Correct.
And so it may go on and on for years. Maybe the suit was filed by me and the decree is declared in favor of my son because I do not exist anymore. Even that can happen.
Yeah. We've heard court cases go for a long time. Yeah, we've heard that.
They may, yes.
Yeah.
So this would be the system if a farmer wants to do contract farming. This would be the system without these acts.
Okay.
Now, as per this first act which we are discussing, I'm free to do contract farming. No state law can stop me.
Okay.
I can as per this particular act, let's see section 3, a farmer may enter into a written farming agreement in respect of any farming produce, and such agreement may provide for the terms and condition of supply of such produce, including the time of supply, quality, grade, standards, price, and such other matters. Now, people have an issue with this also, that if the produce is not as per to the prescribed standard, then the corporates will reject the produce. Then what is wrong in this?
Yeah,
Who wants to eat a substandard food? Tell me, who will eat substandard food? And why do we have to produce substandard food?
exactly. Yeah, because this is a question that I received from actually from some people, uh, mostly detractors of the act. So what they asked is, uh, there's this clause that basically says that when farmers enter into an agreement with a sponsor and a third party and or a third party, then there are some things that they have to take care of, which is pre-decided. So I mean, they can consult. The farmers can consult with the sponsors, and then they have to enter into an agreement, and they decide upon the quality, how much quantity they want to sell and whatnot, and then standard and grade and all of those things, time of delivery, all of that. So they can decide. So the question that they asked me was, like you just mentioned, that what if they decide upon a particular quality, and then at the time of purchase, there is an inspection that is mandated by the act, I think. So I mean, of course, it makes sense to uh, check for the quality. So yeah, so there has to be an inspection, and turns out if in that inspection it turns out that the quality is not up to the mark, then what happens? Because then by the act, as per my understanding goes, the act empowers the sponsor to reject the produce because the quality is not up to the mark. And in this case, people are saying, then what happens to the farmer? That's what the this thing is, objection is. How would you answer that? I mean, should this be the case, first of all?
I see, if a farmer comes to me seeking advice on this particular topic, what should he do? I will advise him, let's make an agreement and oust this particular provision of the law because it is not mandatory. I'll just say that if the crops, first of all, if you are not able to produce a particular standard of crop, then do not mention that do not enter into an agreement for selling such high standard of crop.
Exactly.
Now, if you are thinking that you are confident of growing a good quality crop or decent quality crop, but due to some kind of infestation or any other outward factors, if the quality is compromised, then what you can do is that in the agreement you can provide for such kind of scenario that the corporations can buy the lower quality goods
at a lower price,
lesser price, at a lower price.
Correct.
You cannot make any agreement completely one-sided. Corporations also have to run their business. They have to feed the mouths of their employees.
Yes.
So a midway has to be determined. If the quality is absolutely bad, then you cannot expect the corporations to buy completely substandard material. No one is going to buy it.
True. So that's what came into my head, that if there is an agreement, by the way, and mind you that the agreement has been decided upon by both parties, the farmer and the sponsor or the corporate, then I mean, if your quality is not up to the mark, why should the corporate buy it, right? I mean, it seems harsh, but that's how it is. You wouldn't violate a contract just because, I mean, you felt bad about it. If the quality is not up to the market, it gets rejected. That's natural.
You can provide for scenarios. You can provide for what happens if the quality, if for example there are 4 degrees of qualities and you have agreement for the best quality, and then what to do if the quality is just lower than the best, and you can decide a price for that too. You can decide a price. You can, the agreement can be designed in such a way that an advance can be given to the farmer to make arrangements while the season is lasting, and then he has to take care of the crops, and the crops are growing, and the remaining amount may be released in favor of the farmer as per the quality of the final produce. If the quality of final produce is the best, up to the mark, then whole amount may be released. If it is slightly lower, or the next level of quality, then they can mention for per unit we will release this amount. These kind of things can happen. This is not something. This is not a big deal. This can happen. And if the farmer thinks that this is an absolutely bad idea and we should not do it, then this act is not mandatory upon you. You do not have to do a contract farming at all. You can go by the previous system. This is not mandatory. It's only for freedom. You can experiment. If you have 12 acres of land, 10 acres of land, you can do the old faithful thing, old faithful way of doing your business. on 8 acres, and you can do this kind of experiment for 2 acres, just to get used to this adventure
Yeah. And
as a
I'll
learning
just tell
experience.
you a parallel example to this. Okay, so by training, I'm an electronics engineer. So what
Yeah.
happens is,
I know.
I've heard this. Okay, I don't know this for sure, but I've heard this from a lot of people in the industry. That suppose people who design like processors, okay, and they want to, of course, for different kinds of processors, there are different specs or specifications that we call. So it should be this much frequency, and it should be able to do this and this much power and all of that. So there's a lot of specifications there. So say I am trying to design an i5 processor, and in the end, after it has been designed and verified, and all that product engineering takes place, everything, and then they test it, and it's not up to the mark. You know what they do? They sell it as an i3 processor. So what, at a lower price, of course. So this is what happens. This is how they. You can't just throw it all away, because it costs a lot.
Exactly.
It costs millions of dollars to get one batch of any electronics product out, fabricated. You can't throw it away. So what do? You sell it as a lower model at a lower price, and that's how you do it. So I think that's a similar example to what you just said. So maybe that's a parallel that I used to understand this myself.
No, it absolutely makes sense. Now, adding one more thing in this, what are the scenarios in which the produce is absolutely substandard, cannot be sold at all? Maybe by huge huge infestation by, for example, locusts, or floods or other kind of famine or calamities. First of all, famines are not so common right now. Agricultural sector has grown, irrigation sector has grown. So this kind of calamities are not very common now as it used to be. Yet they do happen. For one cause or the other, the village in which the farming is being carried out is extremely remote or whatever. There are a number of reasons for which this kind of mishappening can happen, and that is accommodated. That has already been accommodated in this particular act.
Okay.
Let's go ahead with next provision.
Yeah. I just had one question about it. So in the beginning, you had mentioned something called MSP, minimum support price. Correct. So could you just briefly explain what MSP is? First thing. Second is, is it mandatory for every player? Okay, so for not just for the government, for private buyers also. And the third thing is it a wise decision to put MSP into law? Because just today I saw another tweet by ANI in which a farmer from UP, I think he was a member of some farmer union from UP, said that MSP should be expanded first of all, and it should apply to a lot of other things, milk and everything, and it should be made compulsory, and it should be put into law. So maybe you could give a little clarification on what MSP is.
See, MSP, as the name suggests, minimum support price, is a scheme of central government to ensure that the farmer of necessary commodities are not left completely empty-handed.
Okay.
So that the amount they are investing, they can recover the amount they have invested throughout the year for growing a crop and earn a decent benefit over it.
Okay.
For the purpose of self-sustenance, nothing more. They cannot buy luxuries by using MSPs. It is only for ensuring that the farmers survive.
Doesn't go into loss. Okay.
That is,
yeah, but what's the rationale behind this? Why? I understand the purpose. Like you mentioned, I understand the purpose. It is to ensure survival of farmers. But why survival of farmers is so important that this has to happen? Because I'll tell you, in a lot of other things, say you go into an industry like electronics or anything else, if you produce a bad batch of processors, then you just have to throw it away. A lot of people get fired. Everything, companies go down. There's nothing guaranteed there. So there's no kind of a MSP like thing for any other sector. It's just for agriculture, as far as I know. So why? Can you give me an idea as to why this sector is considered to be this special sector? It has to have this.
Because a farmer never uses what you make, but you use what farmers make.
Oh, come on. Okay. I
So
understand
we
what is
are.
being said, but I'm not convinced. I'm sorry.
Okay, let me
Yeah.
try harder.
Okay.
See,
Hmm.
as it is has become an extreme cliche that India is an agrarian nation, and and so percentage of population of India is in this agricultural sector.
49% or
Uh,
something. Hmm.
I think that may have changed by now. I don't know.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
the thing is that it is not giving MSPs to everyone. It is giving
Okay.
MSPs to certain kind of crops which are necessary to make sure that we do not go hungry, even
Okay.
though we are. There are so many villages in which kids are malnourished and they are dying of hunger. Yet
Hmm.
let's leave this grim topic for another day.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
Coming
Yeah.
back to this,
Hmm.
the thing is that the necessary crops are grown. So,
Hmm.
for example, now let us, for time being, assume that there is a huge demand of cotton in
Hmm.
foreign land,
Hmm.
and India is the number one supplier of cotton.
Hmm.
And if there is, and every farmer in India, every farmer decides to grow cotton only, leave aside technicalities that not all lands can grow cotton. Just say, for time being, that everyone starts growing cotton. What will
Hmm.
happen? We will
Yeah.
fall
Too
short in
much
other
supply. Hmm.
things which we
Hmm.
have too much. No, no. Say that the need of the company is extremely high. It is
Okay.
it is unquenchable, and
Hmm.
all the produce of all the land of India cannot fill the belly
Satisfied.
of this monster. Let us say,
Hmm. Hmm.
for the time being, for sake of argument,
Hmm.
now cotton is being produced. Farmers are selling the cotton,
Hmm.
and they are earning handsomely. But what happened with other necessary grains, pulses?
Hmm. No,
What will happen? What will have to?
yeah, I
No, no.
understand
Let
it,
me come.
but okay,
Just
so
let me complete.
yes,
Just let
sure,
me
sure,
complete.
sure. Go ahead, sure, yeah.
Let me make my point. Huh?
Hmm.
So this is a hypothetical argument. This argument is not strong. I am just trying to
Hmm.
give you a rough idea why the idea of MSP conceived in the minds of our leaders.
Hmm. Hmm.
Now we have to, soon after independence,
Hmm.
the government had to was expecting high of agricultural sector
Hmm.
to ensure that the people of India sustain, they
Hmm.
survive.
Hmm.
Let us forget about thriving and flourishing. We had to ensure that we survive, we make another day, and we need food for that.
Hmm.
So we expected our farmers to grow those crops which will ensure that our bellies are full and
Hmm.
we can work.
Yeah.
So to ensure that such kind of crops are grown
Hmm.
sufficiently,
Hmm.
and even in worst case scenarios,
Hmm.
the farmers are sure that they will not lose below this. They will not their income will not fall short of a particular standard.
Hmm.
MSP was introduced
Okay.
as an incentive that people may grow.
Hmm.
They may earn higher than the MSPs. They
Hmm.
do earn higher than MSPs.
Yeah.
MSPs is only like an insurance that during worst days, for example, if the produce is so high, the supply is so high, and and the buyers are not interested in buying it.
Hmm.
Even FCI, Food Corporation of India, isn't buying rice right now.
Hmm.
I don't know about right now, but as of end of 2019, they weren't buying rice.
Hmm. Okay.
So farmers and rice millers were having trouble, huge
Hmm.
trouble.
Okay.
So uh, we have to regulate the quantity of every crop, every eatable that our nation is producing,
Hmm.
and we also have to ensure that the most important and basic necessary commodities,
Hmm.
their supply be regulated,
Okay.
and they are always available. For example, we have just faced a huge pandemic. Our
Hmm.
everything, whole nation was shut down for months, and yet India was able to feed people for
Hmm.
a very long time.
Yeah.
No. So it is because we had reserve,
Hmm.
and that is
Yeah.
why the Essential Commodities Amendment Act comes in picture.
Yeah, but yeah, I recently heard this argument as well. Okay, so it was against the whole concept of MSPs. Well, I tend to lean in that area, but I'm open to arguments. Okay, so what was being argued was that what is this procurement by the government aimed at? Okay, so first is for PDS and some welfare
EDS.
some welfare schemes. Second is for crisis management. So like you just mentioned that we had a pandemic and people had to be fed by the government and all of that, and maybe also some places like you have a lot of soldiers staying in places where they have to be given grains and all of that. So that's where the government procurement mostly goes. But what is being said was, say the requirement for all of this is A, then the procurement is actually almost 3 times A. And whatever was surplus that was being procured, that was being bought at MSP, because I think it's the government has to buy at least at MSP, right? They cannot go below that. So first of all, they were spending a lot of money on that. Second, with all the surplus, it just stayed in the godowns. It rotted, and in some cases, it had to be sold to just companies that made alcohol or something, breweries, because that's at least some use could be gotten out of it. So what I'm trying to get at,
failure of government.
Yeah, no, but what I'm trying to get at is, because of this, I mean, I don't know, it's because of MSP itself or because of certain other factors as well, that government procurement is way more than what it is required, that these things are happening. And what happens is, because of this, so if you are buying 3 times what you require, like you just mentioned about cotton, this is happening for the grains that are being procured at MSP. So whatever MSP applies to, people are growing that in large quantities where it is not required. And because of that, there are other problems created. So a lot of companies actually find it easier to import those grains which were growing in India. That's such a pity. So that is one of the arguments that I've heard that was against the MSP. So I'm not entirely okay. So maybe there might have been some historical argument to it, like you just mentioned. So when we just became independent, we had to feed ourselves first. So that was the priority number 1 at that time. But today, I don't think that's the case, right?
See, I think we cannot blame MSPs for government's inefficiency. They can do so many things with the reserve. Let's give example of our own body. I read somewhere a trivia that our blood is completely renewed in every 60 or 90 days, whatever. So in every 30 days, 1/3 of our blood is renewed. Now let's compare it with the reserve of grains that we have. Now I'm the government of India. I'm keeping reserve of grains, and I know that it is a perishable good. Sooner or later, it will get rotten or get infested by rats or whatever. So what I can do, I can sell it to the private players.
Yeah.
The older one. I'm keeping the new. I will keep the new produce of this year. I will buy it at the MSP rate. I will keep it, but I will sell the older one, which may get perished soon. I may sell it for other. I may import it. Older rice are very good. So few aged rice are maybe used for particular kind of cuisines. Let's not get there. So what I'm trying to say is the government can bring some kind of planning in this thing. It is absolutely, it's a sheer lack of planning from the part of government. And I don't think MSP should be blamed. If you are spending money on an asset, it is up to you to make that asset get you more money in return.
Correct.
And if you are not doing it, it is your failure.
Yeah, of course, it's a failure on the part of government, because what happens is, it's a logical train of thought that government has to buy at the MSP. They cannot go below. But then when they're selling,
they can actually do so many things. I suggest, I just conceived an idea while discussing with you. They should make a business ministry. They should make a particular ministry dedicated to earn profit from the scraps of the other ministries, from railways, from everything. Railways do auction the scraps of the things of even the used locomotives and engine parts, whatever. So actually, there is one MNTC or whatever, I can't recall it. Its only work is it is a government Maharatna company, and its job is to auction the produce of even private players. They auction scraps, industrial scraps, they do, and they take commission. they can extend this kind of bodies, and they can employ good smart young people to make use of these kind of things. Why
Yeah, well,
they can, it will not only bring profit to India, the exchequer, no, it will also give employment. They can make a whole ministry out of it. The ministry is solely dedicated to do business. Now you will say, it's not the duty of the government to do business. I'll say
yeah, the
whatever.
government shouldn't be in the business of conducting business. That's what I think. But yeah, those are my views. So you may differ.
No,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you're
the core.
doing more and more, giving more and more things to the government that's already not doing what it should do. So I mean,
No,
I have an inherent
I'm only
mistrust of
suggesting.
government, no matter who is in power. So I don't know.
So government, we have a mistrust of government because government is a corporation. It runs like a corporation, and the whole babugiri that has infested the government is the very reason that we do not trust them.
Yeah,
And this is the whole babugiri that the government, that the this innocent laws are becoming a menace.
yeah.
They could have asked their secretaries, principal secretaries, to sit down and give a clear press conference to the people, because
Hmm.
it's safe to ask the high secretaries and officers to sit
Hmm.
and give a press conference, because no political questions will be asked to them.
Yeah, at least I use a press secretary or something. I don't know what
Exactly,
these people do.
exactly.
Yeah, but yeah, they're bad at communication. They're just bad at almost
Narendra
everything they
Modi,
do.
Narendra Modi did no press conference, just one
Interview
since
with Smita Prakash,
2014.
that's it. No, just this
I'm
one.
not
Yeah.
talking about interviews. I'm not talking about interviews. They're all
Yeah.
scripted. I'm talking about press conference.
Oh
And in
man,
that press conference, only Amit Shah was speaking,
Yeah,
and
he was just sitting
Modi
there.
ji was absolutely silent. Yeah,
Yeah.
he pointed out to him that he will answer. He's the party president.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, I'm in a perpetual state of despair with respect to this, but I don't know, man. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, so this, I think we are almost at the end of the act.
No,
There are
we have
few
to discuss.
things
We have to.
about chapter 3. So about the this conflict resolution, some things.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it was being
Now
alleged
people are.
that yeah, it was being said that people will lose the right, or basically the act does not mention about anything about farmers' rights to approach courts in case they have any grievances, in case they have any problems. So is that the case? And if not, then what avenues do farmers have?
Okay, quick trivia. I'll start with a fun fact that
Mhm.
SDMs, subdivisional officer, subdivisional magistrate,
Mhm.
they are the authorities under PDS schemes.
Mhm.
There is a food controller
Mhm.
who works directly under the collector of the district,
Mhm.
and they are the one who are controlling all they are the administrators in this. And whenever any license of a PDS license holder, a
Mhm.
supplier or seller, is revoked or suspended, the
Mhm.
matter is listed before the SDMs, and the next authority is the collector himself.
Mhm.
So under the PDS systems and Residential Commodities Acts and other, even for the food license वगैरह,
Mhm.
uh, SDMs are authority. They
Okay.
have they have always been, even for revenue, they are a judicial authority. So
Okay.
basically, the post of SDM is a quasi judicial post. So saying that the jurisdiction of civil courts is ousted is actually in benefit of the farmers, because a
Okay.
farmer cannot fight a case in civil court for years.
Hmm.
You know, in civil courts, civil procedure code is applicable. Civil procedure code, they have n numbers of rules and orders and rules,
Hmm.
and I can file amendments of my plaint so many times, and there are so many ways to keep the matter lingering on for months and years.
Hmm.
So this law has made a dedicated post of SDM
Hmm.
to deal with the matters. It has prescribed 30 days time limit. It has prescribed the manner in which the proceedings shall be heard. It says summary procedure. So
Hmm.
summary procedure is something in which the rules of evidence are not strictly needed. For example, I just have to file my plaint. I'm a farmer. I'm filing a plaint
Hmm.
along with the supporting documents of the agreement
Hmm.
and the issues and receipts or whatever. And he will file a reply. The other party will file a reply. If I want to file a rejoinder, I may file a rejoinder or a replication upon the WS. WS is written statement.
Hmm.
And then we can have an argument. There is no need of cross-examination unless the party needs otherwise.
Okay.
Solely on the basis of submissions, a
Hmm.
clear and concise drafting judgment can be delivered within 30 days.
Okay.
There is no issue in this.
Okay.
Now, the appellate authority
Hmm.
has the time limit of 30 days.
Hmm. So it basically works out in the benefit of the farmer. That's what you're saying, and it's
Exactly.
not bypassing courts in any way. It's still a judicial forum.
It is a court. Yes, it is a court. It is not saying now. And people are having issues with provision. Let me see what provision it is. It has stated that nothing in this actual, section 19 of miscellaneous. No civil court. It is very important. I should read it.
Okay.
No civil court shall have jurisdiction to entertain any suit or proceedings in respect of any dispute which a subdivisional authority or the appellate authority is empowered by or under this act to decide, and no injunction shall be granted by any court or other authority in respect of any action taken or to be taken by taken in pursuance of any power conferred by or under this act, or any rules made under with thereunder. So what it is saying that you cannot sue the judge. It is absolutely basic common sense that if I'm going to a court and if the court decides in a particular way and I'm not happy with it, the relief I have is to file an appeal. If I'm not happy with the appeal, I can file a writ, because the jurisdiction of high courts and supreme courts has not been ousted.
Okay.
I cannot sue the judge because he decided the matter in a particular way. This is what this section is saying, and people are not able to understand it. You cannot sue the judge. No, there is no law in India in which you can sue the deciding authority, presiding officer, a presiding judicial officer. He has to be given immunity so that he can do justice properly. Otherwise, he can be held at ransom to decide matters in a particular way. And it is again for protection of farmers, because farmers cannot hold government officials at ransom. Corporations may.
Oh yeah, correct. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So this might be for the contract farming in case a corporate decides to do this.
Yes.
Correct. Yeah. I understand. So yeah, I think we've pretty much covered that, unless you have some specific section to mention there, because I have some miscellaneous questions, so we can go over them. But if you have something to talk about in the act.
Hold on, I am having a call. I think we have discussed all the points of controversy in this act, which are being raised. So, do you have any question pending on this?
Not on the act itself. There's a bit surrounding the act. Okay.
Let's discuss the second act, then we'll take the questions.
Okay, sure. Please go ahead. Yeah. Let's just make the second act a little brief, because it's not a center of any controversy. But yeah, we can discuss if there's something.
We can just simply skip to section 3 of this particular act, and I think all the same arguments will fall in place.
Okay.
Section 3 of this act, chapter 2, section 3. We are currently discussing second act. Second act is the Farmers Produce Trade and Commerce Promotion and Facilitation Act of 2020. And I'm going to read section 3 of this act, which says, subject to the provision of this act, any farmer or trader or electronic trading transaction platform shall have the freedom to carry on the interstate or intrastate trade and commerce in farmers' produce in a trade area.
Excellent.
Now, it is only saying that I have freedom to sell my goods outside my state.
Yeah.
It is saying not just for the farmer, for the traders also. If I'm a trader and you are a farmer, I am buying goods from you and I'm free to sell it anywhere. I'm not bound to sell it in my local market only. If the local market is having some kind of guild that they will not, if I want to sell the goods, I have to sell it in a particular price or to a particular person which I do not want to, or they are systematically ousting me or boycotting me, then I'm free to sell it in a different district, a different state. There is no issue in this.
Okay.
E-way bills are created. I heard an extremely ludicrous argument on this, that it will create smuggling. That it will create smuggling of agricultural produce.
Wow. I mean,
E-way bills are mandatory.
People come up with. I mean, I don't know.
E-way bills are mandatory for transfer of any goods and substance. It's called Bill T. It is made in 3 copies before the E-way bill became a thing. The copy of the consignment, consignee, and the shipment and the receiver.
Hmm.
They made it in triplicates
Hmm.
and bordering areas, and depending on customs or so not sorry, not customs,
Hmm.
depending on the border. Traffic police or agriculture, not agriculture, forest department or trade department. They used to check it. They used to put their seal on it. Now e-way bills are mandatory. E-way bills are extremely easy to make. They're very easy. Their softwares are there. Mobile apps are there. In fact, they can just go to any local shop or internet cafe. They can get it done. They can. Everyone is having smartphone now.
Hmm.
At least they have one in their house.
Hmm.
They can get e-way bill made, or they can ask someone, the person they're trading with, to get them an e-way bill,
Okay.
get an e-way bill made in their name.
Hmm.
So you can all thank Mr. Ambani that the internet prices are so cheap that we can achieve so many things cheaply, just
Just
at
over the
luxury of
internet.
our home using our phone. Yes.
Yeah. So that was one thing. Was there anything else to clarify in the second act?
I haven't counted any.
But this act was not a center of this particular controversy. It was about the other thing. So
pretty much whatever we have said about the first act can be extended to this.
Yeah. That's what I understand.
If anyone is having questions, they can mention it in the comment section.
We'll be happy to answer. In fact, you know what? Now you're also, my friend. So I'll just do this on this podcast. So last podcast, I had just, it was a monologue. So I just announced that I will be answering any questions about any previous podcasts. And such as my reputation is, I don't know, on social media, people just started trolling me.
I was one of them.
Yeah, I know that. People. I thought people would at least ask questions about Arnab's case, at the very least. But that's all right. Yeah, I don't know.
No, we discussed. We didn't leave any room for questions.
Yeah, I tell that to myself.
It's so exhausting.
Yeah, I tell that to myself and feel happy about it. So
दिल को बहलाने के लिए जो ख्याल अच्छा है.
Yeah. I don't care about what other people say with respect to that. That's all. Yeah. But so that's what I was saying. Yeah, but in case anyone has questions about this even now, they can just put it in the comment section for this video, or they could tweet at you or at me. I'll put both our handles in the description. Now, I had a few questions in and around this act. So one of the things that people are alleging, of course, now as you mentioned, we have to get a devil's advocate position here. That even though both of us are not exactly opposed to these acts, in fact, I would say that I'm in favor of these acts, but we have to explore what the other side is saying. So I looked at a few arguments that other people presented, and one of them, which is actually quite common, this is what is being alleged on the protests on ground. It is that this bill or these bills, which are now acts, they were not discussed in the parliament. Or even some people even say that farmers or stakeholders were not consulted for this act.
Yeah, this is true. Farmers and stakeholders were not consulted for this act.
Yeah,
because I think this had been a topic of public discussions for a very long time, even though it wasn't publicized in media, mainstream media never reports anything worth reporting.
Of substance.
Of substance, exactly. So I think it was there in the public conscience, but I will not discount the present government. It was their duty to make people aware of it. The bill should have been publicized. Criticism, feedback should have been invited. No doubt they had discussed with opposition parties. Opposition parties are absolute liars. Even it was there in Congress Party's manifesto. The leader of opposition was there when the topic was being discussed. No one did anything. Mr. Rahul Gandhi was not there. It is his fault. People of Wayanad should question him. Why weren't you there when the act was being passed?
Yeah. I mean, I don't understand it, because these were the very people. Every single person who is crying about these APMCs being abolished or MSP being gotten rid of or whatever they are crying about, almost all of these people in the past have said exactly the things that this government is saying. So I don't know if this is opposition for the sake of opposition. I think this is saying anything in order to detract from the government position. And
I
on top
think
of that,
this is.
it was.
Hmm.
I don't think that this was not discussed in the parliament. It's just not possible
It, I,
because
it was discussed. They cannot
yeah,
pass it without
yeah,
discussion. It is
exactly. It was passed means it was
prima facie
discussed.
the law will become illegal.
Yeah, I mean, and the other thing that I was actually going to ask you, it's like a very small thing, that has this act or any of the other two acts been challenged in courts?
There must be. I think so.
Yeah, because
So
I
many
didn't
petitions are filed. So many petitions are filed daily.
every day. Yeah, yeah.
We
Maybe.
cannot say that they. I think I think. I think so.
Yeah,
Yes.
but then see, I had this question because of course people may have filed or may not have filed. We may not know. But the thing is, if it has been filed in court, then shouldn't that be highlighted in the media? At least we should know, right, that someone is pursuing
Yes.
actual legal avenues by protesting on
And what are the
ground.
grounds?
Nothing has happened.
Yeah. What are the grounds taken by the petitioner in that case?
Yeah, exactly.
Are
On
they
what
legal?
grounds is it being challenged? First of all.
Let me give you a quick trivia again.
Mhm.
Policy decisions of the state cannot be interfered by the Supreme Court.
Okay, but at least if there are acts, then I mean, because what happens is, if there is an act which is passed, then people may approach courts in order to decide upon the constitutionality of the act, right?
Yeah.
That's why I thought if it is being challenged on
So
courts or
when we
not.
say constitutionality, we are basically referring to the fundamental rights.
Okay.
So if I'm saying that you have freedom to do such kind of things, it's not asking you to do it and you have to do it. It is nowhere saying that you have to do it particular way, otherwise we'll take your lands away.
Okay.
No.
So it has
is
no
only
grounds of.
asking you.
Okay, so you cannot challenge it on those grounds, right? Of course, you
See,
can challenge, but it may not stand.
It may not stand. You can file even the most frivolous and vexatious case in the court. The court will have to take it, and they may very well throw it out of the court after giving the petitioner a very much a chance to be heard.
Yeah, to
So
embarrass themselves. That's how I would say it. Yeah. And I take your point that you said that farmers were not consulted, because I mean, if they are, if a decision about farmers is being made, then they should be consulted. But again, the bill itself was, I think, introduced quite a few months back, so it should have been in the media at that point itself, and there should have been a discussion. But yeah, the government should have taken into account what farmers would
whether
have.
they have done it or not, I cannot state that, but they should have sent a copy to the recognized and prestigious bodies
Farmer unions
of which relates to yes, and even to the CMs of the states, because agriculture per se, the manner in which agriculture is carried out, and all such kind of things are part of the are subject matter of state. So should have consulted them, even though they are not, they cannot, even though they cannot act, they couldn't have given any good feedback, because it is only talking about giving farmers a right to do business in a particular manner. They already have right. First of all, let me correct myself. They already have a right to do contract farming. No one was stopping them. It is only strengthening that right. It is only providing a system and a back support. It is only aimed at strengthening the backbone of the kisans, so that they do not get afraid of big corporations or companies, or avoiding the middlemen, because they trust middlemen, even though the middleman has been sucking on their blood. This is a very wrong mentality, that the local guy will rob me every day. I'm fine with it. But some big gora or big man, in suit, I don't want to be fooled by that. That kind of thinking. What can we say?
Yeah,
I'm comfortable at getting fooled by my local grocery seller, but I do not want to be fooled by a big company.
Yeah, maybe embarrassment at a bigger stage is a bigger embarrassment, I guess. I don't know. Yeah. This is very interesting thing that you mentioned here. Okay. And I think in the beginning of the podcast also, I mentioned that I had read an article by Salman Khurshid. And in that, he had argued 6 points. So one of the points in that was that agriculture is actually in the state list. So the union government didn't have jurisdiction to make these laws in the first place. That's what he argues.
When we say agriculture, what do we mean by it?
Well, farming and related activities, right?
Related activities. Is it real? Now let us contrast with that point with act. Is it interfering with the agriculture? Is the act interfering with the agriculture? It is not.
No, no.
It is only letting you decide how you go about your business.
Hmm. Hmm.
It is not asking you to grow this, grow that, sell in
Hmm.
this particular rate, or do not sell, do not use the land in particular manner. Just pause it. Pause for a minute.
Yeah.
So I was discussing that it is only giving freedom.
Hmm.
So freedom to actually, it is believed that less state interference is always preferable.
Yes.
This is even the idea of socialist, maybe not social communist may believe that
Yeah.
less interference by state is
Yeah.
always preferable.
Yeah.
I think this is a place where different ideologies may agree. So this
Yeah.
act is aimed on the same, that there should be less interference of state,
Hmm.
and there should be a machinery, because Liza's fire theory that the most primary duties of state of a nation is to secure justice and to protect borders.
Yes.
Then the concept of welfare state were introduced, and all kinds of
Hmm.
things started happening.
Hmm.
So securing justice, they have secured justice and a quick swift justice in these acts, and they have given them freedom to be out of the interference of middlemen and the state
Hmm.
government.
Okay.
The sections categorically state that
Hmm.
that the produce involved in the contract farming shall be out of the purview of uh, state legislation.
Okay. So what I understand is that it doesn't have any, this act, whatever the scope of this act is, it doesn't have anything to do with the agriculture per se. It has to do with the produce of the agriculture. So it is basically trade.
Not even produce, it is not asking you to do anything with it.
Hmm.
It is it is telling farmer that no, you don't just have to, they already have the right to enter into agreements. No one was stopping them. There's no restriction on them. It is only saying that if you do, that you are free. First of all, it is telling them that you are free to do this, enter into agreement. And if you do, and if there is an issue, then this kind of things will be there to secure justice to you. That's what it is saying. It is not asking farmers, it is not interfering the agriculture. It is not meddling with the state list. It is not at all interfering with agriculture sector. It is only giving citizens some right and how to secure it.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so I understand that much now.
Okay, I have one more issue that.
Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah, please go ahead.
The issue of MSP, they are saying that why don't they make it mandatory
into law?
Someone told me that they haven't. They first of all, they're saying that they didn't write it. That means they want to remove it. Now this is purely based on a false assumption. If I have a right under any different scheme, law, bylaws, rules, acts, enactments, whatever, I do not have to keep on giving it to you in every subsequent law.
Correct.
That's not how statutes are designed. There is a way of writing a law. There is a way of writing, of interpreting a law. For example, this is as stupid as saying that any new law should have MSP mentioned on it. Even if they are bringing any amendment in land acquisition, I can say, "Arey, MSP kahan hai isme?" This is as ridiculous as saying this.
Yeah,
because if the MSP is mentioned in a particular scheme, and there is a budget allocated in Finance Act every year when budget is presented, then there is no need of actually keep on mentioning it in every subsequent act. That makes no sense. That's not how acts are made. Now they are also saying that should they not make it their statutory right? Should they not make it the farmer's statutory right to have MSP? Because MSP as of now is not a statutory right. It is only a relief that government is giving to them under a scheme, and it is as per strictly as per the policy of the government. They may decide any day. They may decide to recall it.
Okay, so that's what people are afraid of, actually, I think.
Yes, that's what they're afraid of. That does not make this law wrong.
Yeah.
They can pass a different law.
Yeah.
They may pass a different law and say that yes, MSP are now statutory right.
Yeah.
Just one section. MSPs are not statutory right. That's it.
Yeah.
So
I
they
mean,
can.
this is like a basic thing. I mean, I am not even a lawyer, but I know this, that they are employing, the people who do this, they are employing a logical fallacy. It is called denying the antecedent, I think. So
Yeah.
what you're saying is you're not doing.
That's one good way to
You didn't
put
say
it.
you didn't say that you didn't mention MSP, so therefore you want to remove MSP.
That's why I extended that logical fallacy in different acts also. I was arguing with some person on Twitter. I said that the bankruptcy code also doesn't have MSP. The person couldn't understand what I was saying. The humor is rare.
Yeah. Was there any particular point that you wanted to clarify? Anything else on? Because I think, let me just see. I have a list of questions that I had made. No, I'm pretty much out of all the questions that I've asked. Yeah. So the last of the questions actually was that with such confidence, Salman Khurshid says that it is not the jurisdiction of the union government to pass a law about something that is mentioned in the state list in the 7th schedule or whatever. 7th schedule, right? Of the constitution, that it's not a part of the union list, so government doesn't have any business. But like you mentioned, it has nothing to do with agriculture itself. So I don't know why he's saying that. And everything else, every other question, a person who has a 7th standard level understanding of English can just go and read the act, and they can understand pretty much everything that is mentioned in the act. I mean, after
the only problem is that no one is reading.
Yeah, exactly. So if you don't do your due diligence and you just, there's a reason that I didn't go too much into the, what is happening in the protests and everything, because it's just shooting the breeze. I mean, you're just talking about protest. I think I'll just call you once to just laugh at whatever the protesters are saying and doing. So maybe that should be like a complete 2-hour podcast separate, because we could do that all day. There's a girl who flew in from Australia to participate in the protest, and she didn't know what the protest was about.
Okay, I have a very good input to give you right now. First, let us correct ourselves that agriculture is the entry number 14th in state list.
Yeah.
Now let us see concurrent list entry number 7.
Okay.
Contracts are a subject matter of concurrent list.
Oh, and yeah.
It is the law that in case of any conflict between the center or state, the central law will apply. There is actually no conflict to begin with. Not any that I know of or highlighted by anyone. So contracts including partnership, agency, contracts of carriage, and other special forms of contracts, but not including contracts relating to agricultural land. Okay, we are wrong here.
I'm sorry. What did you say?
Okay, no. We are talking about land. Sorry. Exception in 7th entry is of agricultural land. So any agreement related to agricultural land is not a subject matter of concurrent list, but contracts including partnerships, agency, and contracts of carriage, and any forms of contracts in general are part of concurrent list. So the government is only talking about agreements and trade. It is only giving them a hand that they can actually enter into agreements. It is not talking about agricultural land.
Exactly. So it's not talking about farming or agriculture by itself. It's talking about everything that's around it. So basically a structure in which you trade with other people and all of that, right? Contracts and everything. So yeah, even that thing doesn't make sense. What amazes me is that he felt the need to write an article like this, and he didn't even bother to check if he was right or not.
I think popular people, these established people, are not very good with simple Google search.
Do they like making fool of themselves? I don't know. I mean,
I think they
explains that.
No, they are pretty much assured that no one will question them or cross check, or even people like us who will cross check will not get the kind of attention that they get. That's the thing. And even the so-called right-wing media never does it. They never tries to point by point, like how Ted Carlson does for Fox. They never take the matter in hand and deconstruct it point by point. They never do that. They are only invested in shouting, yes, we are talking about Arnab.
Yeah. There's a reason that I am doing these interviews about quasi-political things. I mean, of course, there's a lot of politics surrounding this, but this is basically a policy matter. So it is that all my monologues that I'm doing are about the basic principles like free speech and democracy and all of that. But there are these dialogues in which I just spoke to you, and then I did another podcast with a surgeon friend of mine.
Shivam.
Like, yeah. So I'm talking to
Big
these
fan.
people
Big fan,
because there's,
Shivam.
yeah, me too. Yeah. So I'm doing these interviews because these are some things that people are constantly hearing, and the problem is that whatever is being discussed in legacy medium, I don't call these people mainstream media anymore. I used to, but not anymore, because the thing is, the mainstream is going to change eventually.
Yeah.
Eventually,
Social
these
media
people
will
are,
become the mainstream.
yeah, or even like web portals and everything. So there are a lot of new web portals which are doing better analysis of all policies and everything, and they're not dependent on these people anymore. So the legacy media is going to lose big time. And the thing that happens is, because of alternate media, like you have social media, Twitter and Instagram more so. Now TikTok is banned, so that's out of the picture. But what happens is, there's a lot of people who are very good with communication but very bad at comprehension. They don't understand, or they understand partially and then they talk about it.
And
So
some don't want to understand.
yeah, I mean, those are vested interests, of course. There is a section which just engages in that part. But the issue is that these people are so many in number that there has to be a concerted effort on part of several people at a time in order to at least set the record straight. And for that, what I think is, there should be people who are willing to talk about these things, who understand issues. They may not necessarily be experts or anything, because hardly anyone is an expert in any field at all. So you don't need exactly experts. What you need is people who with at least a basic understanding. Now
Basic working knowledge of things.
yeah. So now you're an advocate, and I asked you everything that I could think of, everything that some of my friends could think of about the legality of the bill and the structure of the bill, because it has to do with law. There's a reason I particularly didn't go into a lot of economics, and it is because I actually wanted to invite a person with an economics background here, but due to something, that person couldn't work out. That thing couldn't work out. But I definitely do intend to follow this up by a discussion on exactly what the supply chain of this whole thing is going to look here on, because it's going to radically change. That's what I think, because of the way this bill is structured and everything, and the sort of protests that we are seeing in Punjab, and especially Punjab region and Haryana. So there have to be people with working knowledge of these things, whatever is being discussed in the popular parlance, and there should be at least a little voice from the other side of whatever the cultural orthodoxy is, because media is, whoever is talking like from a broadcasting position, that, I mean, people just watch that for entertainment. That's what I think. Rarely anyone takes them seriously. So what happens is, the real thing is coming from social media.
The panelist system has become a hosting.
Yeah, and it's borderline joke now, because no one ever gets to speak properly. And that's why that's one of the reasons that I'm keeping all of these podcasts, especially these dialogues, long form. That you cannot express all of this nuance in 15 minutes. I mean, you could do, but it would be a bad job.
You have to compromise with quality.
Yeah, exactly. It would not be a good job then. So that is why, that is one of the motivations for me, that I'm doing these dialogues with people who who understand things that are going on. I have lined up a few other people as well who I want to talk to about some other things, not necessarily law or anything, but a lot of things. And I'm actually looking forward to speaking to a lot of them, some of them whom I admire very much. So maybe I'll just announce who I'm getting next week, or the week after that, on Twitter sometime. But that's one of my motivations, that I'm in order to start these podcasts. And I'm actually very thankful to you, and also to Shivam last week as well, as I communicated to him that you are coming and talking to me. You're spending this much time. So we've been talking for almost an hour and a half, and you've patiently answered all my questions, all questions that some people on the social media and all other platforms could come up with. And I'm thankful to you that you came on my show and answered all of this. And
no, it's a two-way traffic, Amog. It is a two-way traffic, and we are thankful to you for providing us this kind of medium. so that we can put our word out there. It is just like, it is not like our word against theirs. We are backed by logic, and we
Yeah.
even invite counter logic to this. And
Mm.
in fact, if anyone, people who are listening to us and they have any counter logic, counter argument,
Mm.
and to point, and if they have anything to point out, any fallacy or any factually incorrect statement that either of us has made, they
Mm.
should point it out. And if we
Yeah.
are wrong, we will acknowledge it. We will correct ourselves. We improve our knowledge. We are
Yeah.
not here to preach you. We are not here to tell you that how to think and how to read it. This is not our job.
Yeah.
We are only countering the misinformation that has become extremely rampant on social media, and it
Mm.
has convinced so many people to spend their nights on road. So I'm not saying that everyone is a propaganda is a part of the problem. Not every protester is
Mm.
a vested interest. There are so many protesters. There must be so many protesters out there who are actually innocent and who are convinced just
Mm.
because of the good convincing power of the other vested interests, that they are under extreme fear that they are going to lose so many things.
Yeah.
So we have to put our word out there. We have
Yeah.
to tell them that this is that what they are saying is not true, and how it is not true. We have to give them a logical explanation.
Yeah.
We owe it to them.
Yeah.
We actually owe it to them. They are farmers. They are annadatas. We should respect them.
Yeah.
Because everything, we cannot. We are an emotional country. We are not absolutely cold. We cannot be. We have we have to come. We should have compassion for people,
Yeah.
and it is not wrong to be compassionate about farmers, because it is an extremely hard work. They are extremely hard working.
Yeah.
So if they are if their health and well-being is being compromised, or they are used as a they are being puppeteered by some vested interest, some wrong people, for political ulterior motive, then to the best of our capacity, we should try to bust the misinformation and the propaganda.
Yeah.
And thanks to you, I could get an opportunity to reach out to people. It depends
Yeah.
on how people take it, and I
Yeah.
hope if there is if someone thinks that we are wrong, they point it out.
Yes. Yeah. So I think we're at the end of whatever subject matter that I had to discuss. So thanks, Prashant, for coming on the show. And to the audience now, if you like today's discussion, please be sure to give me a thumbs up. If you have any questions with respect to this podcast or any podcast that I've done previously, then please feel free to use the comment section of this video or tweet at me. My Twitter handle is at amogh_astra. That is at AMOGH_ASTRA. I'll also put my handle in the description. Then you could also tweet to Prashant. I'll put his Twitter handle as well. Maybe you could just tell it to people.
Okay, my Twitter handle is FLEX Lex Loci. That's how you pronounce it.
Yeah. So I'll put his Twitter handle as well, and then I'll also put some good articles that I found, particularly on the farm bills, and also some articles that I found that were raising some questions. I'll put all of the links to all of those in the description. Maybe you could go through all of those articles and just to get a better understanding. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So hopefully next week I'll get someone else to talk about something more interesting. I'll not reveal any of it right now before anything is finalized. So yeah, stay tuned. And if you like to watch any of my, if you like watching any of my content, and if you'd like to watch more of this, then please subscribe to my channel. And namaste. Thank you.